We are on discussing our remarkable Savior, and Mark chapter 10 is a great place to go for that. I knew some of you were like, are you going to wear a tie all week? I said, no, I'm going to ditch that thing for Monday night. And then Ted Knight comes in here looking like $1 billion. You notice that? He puts everybody to shame when he goes somewhere. We always catch up at about time like this, and so we went to Colton's and about 5, and then about 6 or a little after, he said, aren't they serving a meal at church? I said, man, I could have, instead of splurging on you here, I could have taken you to the church for a free meal. That's terrible. Sorry, I forgot about it. I'll be here the next 2 nights. I'm not used to that kind of thing. And so this is one church that does that. I don't know anybody else who does that kind of thing. You guys love eating here. Where 2 or 3 gathered in my name, there is food in the midst of them. That's the Morrilton church. I don't know how you work it out because there's always a different crew cleaning up, but those of you who set up and clean up, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know what that's like. I know what that is, and that puts a little extra stuff into your week. And we're just very thankful that you do that. And if you're visiting with us tonight, we're grateful that you're here. And hope that you will walk away thinking it was good to be with God's people tonight. You ever had an experience that was so deeply impactful to you that you just wish that everyone could have an experience like this? You would covet it for everybody. I'm one who thinks everyone should go to Busch Stadium. So here's a picture of Busch Stadium in case that's as close as you ever get. It's where the Cardinals play, right? And that's where real baseball is played. You got some St. Louis people in here. And I've been a Cardinal fan all my life, even now, the way they are. And this lady over here was wearing a Rangers shirt yesterday, and the Cardinals came back and whooped them in 2011. But I have to go back 20 years to be able to share a story like that, right? But anyway, so we are still in the same church worshiping together anyway. Have you ever been to a Trans-Siberian Orchestra at Christmas time? Anybody seen that? They terrified me, and I smelled stuff I'd never smelled in my life. So I don't think you should go to that. That's not one of those experiences. And then I'll take this a little further. Have you ever met somebody that you just wish everybody could meet? They so blessed your life. You're like, everybody should be able to. So here's a picture of one. Has anybody, them, think of that? This is off Facebook. They don't update pictures very often, do you think? This is them back in back in the last century. But I'm serious. I know stories about the Hewletts that tell me these two are the real deal. And when you met the real deal, it changes you and it blesses you. And I wish the world would meet them. That's what you told me to say, right? Do I get my $20? Okay, all right. And then here's some others. The Leslies, they're great people. I especially like Ethan. Is Ethan here? Ethan is here. See, I planned this too. You told me last week to throw that in there, and I put it in there. So, great. He's now within just a driving distance. I mean, he's like right there in Jonesboro where he lives, and so I get to see him on occasion. Y'all raised a good one. I know it takes a village and a church to raise somebody, but you raised a good one, and he's blessing people in our area just like he did here. There are just those people and those experiences that you wish everybody could have, that you could share with everybody and maybe make the world a better place. That is what Mark is doing writing this letter, this book, this gospel. He is so convinced, he's actually recording the experiences and the memoirs of Peter. So Peter's back behind this. John Mark was not an eyewitness to the earliest stuff, but he's interviewing Peter, and he's so enraptured by the story, and he wants everybody to know it. And he wrote this book to convince every reader, you need to be willing to change your life, to rearrange your life if necessary to follow this man. I want to introduce you. I want to make an introduction to this man in your life so that he so enthralls you that you're willing to upend your life to follow him. That's what he's doing in this letter. And so as we read it in this week, as we study at least 6 portions of it, I'm hoping you get a little taste of that. This man was special. Do you agree? Did Jesus change your life? Did he do something for you that couldn't have been done any other way, and you are convinced this world needs this man? And we're looking out at the world right now going, y'all need to meet him. It would make this place a different. I wish the world would realize who he was and just follow him and see what a difference he makes. There's this short account in Mark chapter 10 where we are tonight. It's the last healing account that occurs in the Gospel of Mark. And it's the only one that names the beneficiary. Everybody else is unnamed in these miracle stories. At least I think it names him. It calls him Timaeus, which means, or Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus. That may be the fact that he's a son of this guy, but I'm just going to say that's his name. And it's the last one that Jesus does, and it may be the most complete healing miracle in all of this gospel, and here's why. This guy actually receives the benefit of Jesus' action, and he continues to follow him. Now, you would think, right, that there were a lot of people who did that. There aren't. It's amazing the number of people who receive some blessing, amazing over-the-top blessing from Jesus, and they didn't keep following him. And I want you to know this, and you know this as well as I do, that this world in general is very blessed by Jesus every single day of their life. That common grace of God and what God did through Christ that made this entire world better. Everybody is a beneficiary of the work of Jesus, but still very few actually follow. We are witnesses of what this man could do. And we look around us in a world we live in and see people who could really use his services and his impact. We want to introduce him to them. We want people to take advantage. I hope you feel that way, and I hope it drives you to live a certain way in order to kind of facilitate the introduction. You want people to go, why do you live different? And Peter says, the same guy who's behind Mark, says to you, when somebody asks you, well, what's the big deal? Be ready to give an answer for the hope that you have. Make them ask you because you look different. You're calm when everybody's losing their mind. And you are faithful when everybody else just kind of wavers in their faithfulness. And it makes them ask you to question, and then you give a chance to introduce them. If people knew who this man was, first off, they would cry out to him for mercy. You notice this. If you would back up to that. I should have read that first. If you would back up that screen. They came to Jericho, and as he was leaving Jericho on his way to Jerusalem to die, he's on that last journey right now, with his disciples and with a crowd, a great crowd gathered. Bartimaeus, the blind beggar, the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside. That's a great time of the year, y'all, to fill that cup. There are people traveling all over this major highway. And when he heard it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. The first thing he did is he asked for mercy. He had heard enough stories. I don't have any idea what stories he'd heard, but y'all, in a small town, how long does it take before the stories get told around? If I was a kid, I grew up in a town of 4,000 people south of St. Louis, and if I cussed at school at 3, by 4, my mom was waiting at the door with a belt. Everybody who knew me called her and said what I did, and I knew it, and it was done. You know, that's a small town. This word, Jesus' words and Jesus' deeds got told. And he's on the road, and he hears all these people traveling around from all over the empire, and he hears the stories, and his imagination gets lit up thinking, if that man ever comes my way, I know what I'm going to do. And you know, every one of these stories had some common features to them. He gave people things no one else could give you. He did things for you that you couldn't pay for or contribute to, and he was more than willing. In fact, sometimes there would be lines of people, and he waited there till every one of them was healed. He heard these stories, and he's equal opportunity. He doesn't make you contribute to it or pay for it. That's what mercy is, getting what you don't deserve. And this man knows that he can't pay for it. He can't do anything to get it, but he knows this man is a merciful man. And he knew two things that day. Hit the two buttons if you would. He knew he needed mercy, and he knew Jesus would give it. That's the two things he knew from the stories he heard. Now, considering these two things right here, what do you think is the reason people today don't cry out to the Lord for mercy? Of these two. I'm going to say the first one. I don't think people sometimes know that we have a merciful God. And you know what happens if they don't know that we have a merciful God? They will think they have to be deserving first. I have to get my act together first. I need to clean up my stuff first. I need to try everything possible to get things right on my own first. And then God might intervene. But you know what? That's not who our God is. Our God reveals himself in a specific way in Scripture. In fact, his one official, authoritative, self-definition revelation is in Exodus chapter 34 when Moses asks for it. And God says, I can't show you completely me or it will blow you up. So I'm just going to reveal myself to you. I'm going to tell you who I am. It's the greatest articulated clearly by God, his own definition of himself. And I want you to listen to it. Here it's on the screen. Next screen, I hope. The Lord descended in the cloud when Moses asked for this. He wanted for God to show his glory to him. And he descended in the cloud, and he stood with him there, and he proclaimed the name of the Lord. The Lord passed, and he says, here's my name. And he gives a word definition first. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, and he said this. The Lord, a God, what's the first word? Merciful. You know what his first name is? Merciful. That's his first name. Now, listen to the rest of the first name. Gracious. I don't know what the difference is. Mercy is not getting what you deserve. Grace is getting what you do not deserve. It's, I guess. Merciful, gracious. He's slow to anger. He's abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. He keeps steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin. His first name, what he wants to be known as first is, I am a merciful God. And this definition goes all the way through the Old Testament constantly. Every letter of the every book of the Old Testament has something about God and this in it. In fact, if you remember, Jonah hated this. He doesn't like the fact that God's first name is mercy. He doesn't want the Ninevites to have mercy. I don't want you to do it. And I knew that's the kind of God you are. I know. God wants to be known first, primarily, as a merciful God. A God who is so ready to respond to you. He is more ready to give you mercy than you are to ask for it. He's just ready. He's just ready to be abundant and bountiful with this amazing mercy of his. He wanted people to know this. And I think it's because of this. This is just some fancy wording for some of these St. Louis people. I want to impress them who are in college. This God we serve is the only independent being in the entire universe. Right? He's the only, we are contingent. We need something else in order to, we're not self-sufficient. Nothing in the universe, in the cosmos, is self-sufficient except the God we serve, the independent God. And everything he created, he knew, depended on him. He created everything to need him. Isn't that something? He knew when he created us, we were going to need him all our lives. What is Jesus? He's a perfect image of God. He created everything and he sustains everything. He is back behind everything, making everything run. And he knew we would constantly need him, and he wanted to be needed, and he wants to be accessible, and he wants to be willing. And your existence, the fact that you were ever born, is an expression of the mercy of God toward you. It's crazy, isn't it? And he kind of loves to show off. His glory is when he makes his holiness visible to us. And so what he loves, in the Old Testament, he would say to his people constantly, I wish when you're in trouble you'd come to me and ask me. Quit asking these things you created. You cut down a tree and you burn some in the wood and you do some other things and you build a chair and a table and then you make a god and you bow down to it and ask it for the things you want. Why don't you ask me? I want you to ask me because I'm willing to help you. God is a merciful God. He wants us to depend on him and show off his existence. That's the God we serve. He is not stingy with it either. He's not stingy with his mercy. He wants, he's a God who just can't wait till somebody repents so that he can automatically forgive. Not after a probation period, not after you've proven yourself, not after you've paid off the debts. He wants to immediately meet you with mercy. I want you to know that about God, and I want the world to know that, and I want them to hear it from us. But if the problem is not that God is stingy with his mercy, then do people just not know they need mercy? Do people not know they need it? We're needy people. Do you hate to hear that? A lot of you are very fiercely independent. Many of you are. You're control freaks too. You think you're in control of everything. I know it because I am one too. I like to be in charge of stuff and do things my way and not need anybody. Problem is we weren't created that way. And when you think you are, you'll get a pulmonary embolism that says, no, you're not, or a heart something comes up and says you need a community of doctors to keep you alive. Those kinds of things happen to you. You know those people hold up signs at intersections? Next screen. Next one. Man, you're behind my... Oh, yeah, I was supposed to read that, wasn't I? All right. When he heard it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. I love that. He asked for mercy. And then many rebuked him, right? And he was telling him to be quiet. But he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stopped and said, call him. And they called the blind man, saying to him, take heart, get up, he's calling you. That's where we are in this thing. But here's the thing about this. We got people at stop signs, intersections, hold up, I need this and I need that. And sometimes we frown on them. We think, man, why don't you just get a job and take care of yourself? If you can be self-sufficient. The problem really is this, that you should be holding up signs because you have needs too. We don't like that idea. I like to be really, really independent and not need stuff. But we were created by a God to be needy. And I'm going to prove it to you right here, right now. So, just be still for about like 10 seconds. How many breaths did you take? 3 or 4? 5? And I think George could tell you right now that when you can't get air, that's the only thing you think about, and you are really trying to get air because you got to have air. And here's the thing, do you manufacture your own? Did anybody manufacture your own? Even if you have one of those things besides the commercials that make your, you don't make your own air. You need something outside of yourself in order to continue surviving. You need air. You could hold up a sign tonight that says, I need air. You must have it. Do you create it? Nope. Did you produce it? Nope. Well, where'd it come from? From God. There's another thing that you could hold up. You need a restored relationship with your Creator. You've got a sin problem you created, but you can't fix. That's the most frustrating thing. Now I jumped ahead. Back up if you would, because I've got to go back to Ephesians chapter 2. You've got a sin problem that you can't fix, and no one else in this church can fix it for you either. And so you've got to realize that you are in need of this sin problem being taken care of, because if you don't, you are forever apart from God in eternity in hell. It's a bad thing, y'all. That's worse than not breathing. So he says to us, and this is everybody's story in Ephesians chapter 2, it's everybody's story. You were dead in your trespasses and sins in which you were in rebellion against God. And that's everybody. There's no exception to this anywhere in the universe. We are all dead in our sin. But God, being rich in mercy, God fixed it. You didn't. Now, it is fixed. There is a fix available to you tonight, right here. There's a fix that will take care of that problem, but you can't fix it. You can't do it. All you can do is go before a merciful God and ask for it. That's all the options you've got. And He's rich in mercy because of the great love with which He loved us, even when we were dead in those trespasses. Even though we were completely lifeless and powerless to do anything about it, He made us alive together with Christ. He did everything necessary to extend that fix to you. But you have to ask for it. And for those of you who are fiercely independent and do things on your own, that is so frustrating. We need mercy. And we serve a God who is merciful. Full of mercy. And when Jesus came, all He did was revealed what God is like. He too was merciful. And this man knew it. And this man was going to cry out for something that matters. He had a deficiency that he couldn't solve, and he knew that Jesus could solve it. And so he knew he would likely be willing to do it. And so what is he going to do? He doesn't care what anybody thinks, what shame comes upon him from the populace. He is going to cry out for mercy, and he gets it. I wish people knew we serve a merciful God. But here's the second thing. I wish we would keep crowds from they would not let the crowds keep them from coming to him. That's what I wish people knew. Too many people are worried about the crowds. This might be the crowds of the world. This was a major highway. So there's people who are just traveling for whatever reason in that crowd between the man and Jesus. Got between them. There were also Jewish travelers on their way to the Passover, which is a huge, big deal, like one of the 3 big holidays of the year. And so you got a bunch of Jewish travelers. They're getting in the way of this, and that could be in the way of him, and he never see them. That's why he has to cry out so loud. And then you've also got the disciples of Jesus there. They're on their way to what they know is one of the most significant things in Jesus' life, and they're very somber and serious, and they're sitting there. There were crowds of people excited. They're ready to get to Jerusalem, and these crowds got between the blind man and Jesus. Can I tell you that sometimes the greatest barrier between Jesus and the people who need him are the followers of Jesus? Sometimes we get in the way. I mean, already the disciples say, keep these children away. They're getting in the way. They're making noise. And they've said, send that Syrophoenician woman away. She's annoying us. And there's that guy who tried to do an exorcism in Jesus' name, and we tried to stop him. And Jesus said, don't you try to. We sometimes get pretty cliquish in the church. We can sometimes be the excuse people have for not coming to Jesus. Can we admit that sometimes? Can we acknowledge that sometimes? Don't ever let the church, and I'm saying this to the church, but there might be some people here tonight interested in Jesus. Do not let the church be the reason you stop following Jesus. Don't let that happen. That can't be what stops you from filling the need that you have. Don't be the excuse. Don't let the church be the excuse from keeping you from there. But don't overlook this either, because I'm a pro-church guy. I'll tell you why in a minute. This man would have never known Jesus was there if the crowds hadn't told him. He wouldn't have known it. And, notice this, Jesus said, many rebuked him, telling him to be silent, but he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stopped and said, call him. He did not go to the blind man. He told the crowd to bring him. He wanted the crowd to play a role in getting the blind man to him. You guys tell him, I want to see him. And they brought the blind man to Jesus. They had a role. He wants the church to be the middleman. We are an important factor in this transaction, and we're supposed to be. That's how God designed the church. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, when you respond to the one who died for all of us, when you respond, you become new, but it also says you become an ambassador for Jesus, for God, as though God were making his appeal through you. I don't know why God did this, and it's the riskiest move he ever made, but he said, before, the gospel has been provided by God. But here's where people live. That was 2,000 years ago. Here's where people live. Jesus doesn't have to keep dying. He died once, but somebody needs to tell him. It doesn't do any good to have this wonderful blessing of grace in the cross of Jesus if people don't know about it. How are they going to know about it? He left that in our hands. That is the creepiest thing in the world. He left it in the hands of human beings. We got to tell it. He designed the church to be this part in this process. With my story, I came to the church first. I belonged to the church before I ever believed in Jesus. That's just the way it was for me. And most of us probably come to the truth that way. And by the way, it's a perfectly appropriate way to do that. We're in love with the church because that draws us. That in-reach is really outreach. When people see us enjoying fellowship with one another, John chapter 13, right? They'll know you are Christians by your love for one another. When you're loving each other in here, people out there go, I want some of that. And they start coming in and finding out that's kind of, our in-reach is also our outreach. It's not one or the other. It's what I learned as a kid. My parents divorced when I was very young. My mom moved us back to Missouri. I was in Michigan, and thank goodness we repented of that. And then came back down to Missouri, and we got involved. She married my stepdad, and his mother was a diehard member of the church in Fredericktown, Missouri. Actually, Mine Lamont, you'll never hear that, ever. And she loved us into the church. The church took up us into the family. It was my extended family. They punished me. They loved me. They let me sleep on the pews. They did all that stuff. And it became an easy transition from church to Christ. But here's what happens. If you stop at the church and don't go on to Jesus, church becomes an idol. Now be careful with this. Don't misquote this. Don't let yourself fall so much in love with the church that you never get to Jesus. And then all of a sudden, whatever happens with the church becomes my entire faith. And if the church I grew up in closes its doors, my faith dies. Or if the church has a fuss and it fights and it goes and I have a bad church experience, my faith dies. That cannot be allowed to happen. That only happens when you make the church an idol. And the church, y'all, we at our best can be bipolar. I love the Morrilton church, but I'm never going to go out and try to sell people on the gospel by talking about how perfect my church is, because I know how imperfect it is too. For every person I remember to celebrate happy birthday, there are 4 I forget. And I feel bad about that, but it's my humanity. And I'm just telling you, this is an imperfect church. So if you're thinking, hey, this is look at this wonderful church, they're perfect. No, they're not. But we serve a Christ who is. And we will introduce you to Him. And we will bring you to Him. And He can save you. We can't. We can't. But we're going to play a role in it. Do not idolize the church, but also do not disrespect or belittle it. Jesus died for it. He made it part of this instrument of how people can find out about the good news of the cross. He insists on using the church to reach people. Just don't make it an idol. If you make it an idol, it's your fault as much as it is the church when your faith fails. Let the church help. Be part of the church. Don't let the church distort the view of Jesus for people, but come, let's travel together and be an agent to introduce the world to this man who can save. We are the middleman. We are not the man. Do you get that? We are the middleman, not the man. The man is amazing. And the middleman is pretty cool too, but he's not the man. If people knew who he was, they'd ask the right things. Here's what he keeps going. This question in red, I'm telling you, it scares me when Jesus poses this question. So, and throwing off his cloak, he sprang up and came to Jesus, and Jesus said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" I think this is scary because people can ask the weirdest things of the Savior. They have weird ideas about what they need. And our petitions sometimes get rather puny. We don't ask for big enough stuff. We ask for little stuff. Stuff that would just, like right now, temporal things, and there's big things we need to be asking. This beggar was taking advantage of great traffic, and the most obvious thing in the world for him to ask for is money. And any other person, any other time, any other day, the right thing would be to ask for money. But not today. Today, with Jesus standing in front of you, it's not the time to ask for money. It reminds me in John chapter 5 of that weird story of the man at the well. There was this, some kind of cultural myth that when the waters stir up, if you're the first one to get into it, you'll be healed. And so Jesus says, "What do you want me to do for you?" And the man said, "Well, I can never get in the water. I can't get in the water. I can't get there fast enough. Somebody beats me to it." And Jesus is like, "Well, what do you want me to do for you?" "Well, if I could just get in the water." And I want to yell at the guy, "Forget about the water!" You will never hear a Church of Christ preacher ever say that. Except in this case. Forget about the water. You've got the Son of God standing in front of you. And you're lame, and you've been lame for years, and you're telling him about the water? Listen, ask for health and restored life. That's what you asked for, and finally he got it, right? Here's a blind man, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid the guy's going to go, "Well, give me some money." Don't ask for that. There are times that you should ask for it. Go shoot for the moon. Do you know who this is? Ask for things that count. Don't be puny with your prayers. Forget all that stuff. And apparently the blind man knew that. What does he say? Rabbi, let me recover my sight. I don't care about, just tip over this guy. I don't care about the money. Give me my sight because I know that's what you can do. And what does Jesus say? Go your way. Your faith has made you well. I love it. He asked for the right thing. I wish people would ask for this. For one thing, we all need to ask for vision. I want you to notice this from 2 Corinthians. Next screen. Even if our gospel is veiled, covered up to where you can't see it, it's veiled to those who are perishing. People who are unbelievers, bound to be perishing, do not understand the message that we gather here on a Monday night to hear more about. We'll come out here on a Monday night to hear more about this. Other people go, that's the stupidest story in the world. I'm not even going to pay any attention to it. What's the difference? Somebody is veiled. Somebody doesn't know what this story is. In their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who's the image of God. Jesus came to bring the light. He came into a dark world, and some people just love and choose the darkness instead. If you get to ask Jesus something, ask him for the same. Give me my sight. I want to see true realities. James tells us in James chapter 4, they're having fights and quarrels at church, and it's their passions. What I want, when you're mad at somebody, a church fight, why don't you just, and before you get too involved in that, look inside yourself and say, what am I wanting here? Because something you're wanting is causing a fight. You desire, you don't have, you murder, you covet, you can't obtain, so you fight and you quarrel. You do not have because you don't ask, and you ask, you don't receive because you ask wrongly. We can pray wrong prayers. And this man who had Jesus in front of him did not pray a wrong prayer. Don't waste your petitions. When you get a chance to stand before and come before and relate to the Son of God, don't be puny with what you do. Don't waste the opportunity. One last thing, if people knew who this man was, they would keep following him. A lot of people come to the church building for a lot of things, and you'll give them money, you'll pay a bill or something, and they just go right back to what they were doing. It doesn't change their life. But notice two things about this guy, and I may have already, back it up if you would. There's one verse. Nah, keep going maybe. No, keep going. No, I mean all the way to the end. Right there, right there. Notice what he does here. So, throwing off his cloak. He's going to throw off everything that's between him and where Jesus is. Anything that he has with him that blocks and obstructs the relationship with Christ, he's getting rid of. He knows what this man's about to do. He doesn't let anything keep him back. Threw everything off. What do we need to throw off to get to Jesus? What is it that we're using as an excuse not to get there? Well, I got this relationship, and if I keep this relationship, I can't get close to Jesus. How about throw off that relationship? If that's what it takes to get to Jesus, throw off the relationship. Oh, I'm so busy, and one of these days when things slow down, I'll throw out the schedule. Throw off the schedule. I've got this dream for my life, and what I need to be doing is working 4 jobs so I can pay off my 2 vehicles and this nice house. Throw off the American dream. Whatever it is that is your excuse for not following Jesus, throw it off. It's not worth being an obstruction and keeping you from what Jesus wants to give you. This man says, my sight is worth whatever. He throws the cloak off. And then he sprang up. You know what sprang up is? There's many people in here who should not do that. Because then you'll have a lame man and we'll have to go to a different text for that. He threw off that cloak and he sprang. I mean, this guy didn't have to be told twice. I throw it off and I'm jumping and I'm running to you. Threw it off. And he didn't take his eyes off Jesus. Notice, Jesus said, go your way. Just go on. I'll give you your sight. Just go on. But the man doesn't. What does he do? He recovered his sight and followed him on the way. He got into the crowd that followed him to Jerusalem. I think, and many people think, the reason his name is mentioned in Mark is because the people of the early church knew who he was. And they loved the story of how he became a follower, and so he put it right into that story, complete with his name. It's a nice touch. And people will come to know your name when you follow Jesus. Or more importantly, God will come to know your name when you come to Jesus. So do you know him? Has anybody in here received mercy from him? Have you been introduced to his family who's walking with him? Have you remained in fellowship with him? Are you continuing to follow him? I think there's one thing then, only really one thing you want now. We want others to know what that's like. We want others to join us and walk in him. For everyone to meet him. It's just like like going to Busch Stadium, or you're having these experiences. I wish everybody had this. Like you guys were at the part of the whole eclipse, it's like right here. I think some of you even let people park in your yard for $1 billion or something like that. It's just, because not everybody got to see that, right? We wish everybody could. In fact, I wish you'd pay me to show you, right? Well, Jesus says to us, and this story says to us, the one thing Christians want, once they follow Jesus, is just for other people to follow Jesus too. And if people knew who he really was, they wouldn't come to him and get what they need and then they'll leave. They'd experience this incredible mercy. And it would touch them and it would change them and they would never let him go. And they'd keep following him. It gives you the best kind of life that you can live. Not one day. It gives you the best kind of life you can live right now, called life abundantly. If you've tasted that he's good, as Peter says in 1 Peter 2, if you've tasted him, you only want more. But he also wants to lead you to the best kind of life forever, to never leave, to stay with him, to follow him, and one day meet him face to face. And until you do, just travel with the rest of the community that wants the same thing. So be part of a body of people that really has only one mission in life, to be ambassadors, introducing other people to this amazing Savior who's blessed us, and we want him to bless you too. Is there anyone here who needs to throw anything off this evening and meet him? We would love to introduce you. We would love to escort you. Spring up right now, but the rest of us are just going to stand up and sing. But you need to spring up like this guy did and come meet Jesus as we stand.